I'd like to welcome you to this edition of EMU Today TV. And by the way, Happy New Year, everyone. We made it to another year. And I wish you all, I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. And I certainly hope peace and prosperity and health for everyone in the new year. And I have a very special guest as we continue this series called EMU Today TV. I am your host, Mark S. Lee. And so pleased to have me this particular edition, President James Smith. President Smith, thanks for joining me at EMU Today TV. How you doing?
Mark, always a pleasure. Thank you. I agree. Much health and prosperity for the viewing audience and for you as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, let's just jump right into the conversation. There was a major announcement at the most recent Board of Regents meeting back in December, late last year, as it relates to transforming the on-campus housing for Eastern Michigan University. Talk about the plans, talk about the concept and what the university is planning on doing at this point.
Well, first of all, Mark, you know that these discussions have been going on for several years now. We've been very successful in upgrading our academic facilities. I take great pride in what the team's been able to do in Strong Hall and Sill Hall. We have really transformed those buildings. What we know from the work we've done all the way back to the Mark Jefferson Science Complex is that the modernization of these facilities are really essential elements for us moving forward. And that's kind of why we've used the Welcome Home 2025, showing that we're going to be bringing back new opportunities or bringing on new opportunities in 2025. So that was a board vote to say go forward and begin investing in these housing opportunities that will be state of the art and will be really reflective of housing for today's students as opposed to housing for 15 or 20 years ago's students.
In my case, housing going back beyond that, because when I first joined, when I first went to Eastern Michigan University, I actually stayed in Hill Hall. And that was way back in 1978 to 1979. So that kind of gives you a sense of how old some of the housing is on campus. And so this is a chance to kind of update, I think, the facilities. Is that correct, President Smith, in terms of making it, bringing it into the 21st century, so to speak?
Well, first of all, Mark, you and I are of the same age range. So I was an undergraduate at Miami of Ohio in 78 and 79. So you and I both knew that. But for the viewing audience, we are similar in airline and we are similar in age. Right. What we've done is we've kept very clean, very nice facilities as far as, the entryways look nice. They're sparkly. The carpeting is constantly cleaned, but the infrastructure just isn't there to do the work that you have to do in year 2025 and beyond. Best Hall is a good example. We have very thick walls in Best Hall. It doesn't always comport well with what we want to do in wireless technology. So we're going to really investigate with a partner how we go forward and do a very, very large allocation of dollars into this transformation for students that will be talking about maybe as far back into the future. They'll be looking back and saying, in 2025, I was in that building, it was brand new. So we may hear those same conversations in the future.
As you talk about, though, and I'm smiling, but you're right, it's an opportunity to kind of bring us up to date. As preparing for this conversation, things have become parts of our lives every day, such as Wi-Fi, such as technology. And I'm assuming that this new housing initiative or the revitalization will certainly bring the technology needs up to speed as to our students are certainly using technology to have content delivered to them in the classroom or virtually. And so this is a chance or an opportunity to enhance that for the on-campus housing as well.
Well, it's more complex than just technology, Mark. And I think you know this from your teaching in the College of Business. We have students that need that living, learning community space where they can work in triads and dyads on projects. You'll see in the new Sill Hall, I think you've seen some of these spaces where they're almost little cubby spaces where you can put your two computers side by side and work on a project. It's every bit of that plus, we're talking about things like do we create some podcast rooms in every one of the residence halls? Because podcasts are obviously popular now, but they're going to be even more popular in the next half decade or more. So we're really looking at $200 million sounds like an enormous investment. But when you think about all the things we want to do, $200 million makes an awful lot of sense.
You know, the other thing, as we were preparing for this discussion again, is we have one of the top student centers in the country. I believe it's been ranked the top student center in the country, overlooks a beautiful pond on campus. And it's my understanding that the space next to the student center will also be, I guess, housing, if you will, on-campus housing for students.
Yes, you're a line or two ahead of my notes here to include, Mark, but yes, we're calling it Lakeview now, or Lakeside. I'm not sure what the final name will be for the complex that'll be up where the basketball courts were, and we're going to move those over to the Rec IM. So the basketball courts will move. We'll still have basketball courts available for pickup games when it's not, I don't know, the wind chill's 4 degrees, I think, today. No one's out playing today, but that will be one of the facilities. And if you think about where the boathouse is, it'll be just above that. And then as you indicated, a walk a little bit down the hill and right into the student center, and then a walk a little bit up the hill and right into the library. So very purposeful there. And then Westview, which was state of the art when we built those townhouses X number of years ago, will be it will be flattened, and we will build a facility similar to the one we described up on top of the hill in the area where Westview is. So that'll be about 700 new beds when you think of those two, and they'll renovate, just making sure I'm looking at my notes right, about 2,025 renovated rooms. And we're not talking about lazy rivers and granite countertops and some of the things that you and I read in the Chronicle of Higher Education. We're talking about nice, functional, affordable housing that has that high-tech dimension, that has that kind of community of scholars feel where students can get together and work on companion projects. I know you teach a lot with project-based learning. They're going to be able to do those projects in those dyad and triad groups. Maybe you might have a 6-person group that you'll break your teams into, and they'll all meet at the new Westview facility and work in one of those kind of study areas. That's the thing we're thinking of. So
let me raise a question as well. As we know, the state colleges across the state have been experiencing enrollment declines. And certainly some people may question why investing in student housing if the enrollment has been declining even over the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Where does that fit into the overall plans for the university to invest back into student housing in light of student enrollments continuing to decline over the last couple of years?
Well, again, these are things that the viewing audience may not know, but I know you do know, Mark. We're about 7% up above our last COVID year in freshman FIDIAC, first time at any college registrations. And, that divides out on campus and off campus. We know that. But we also think that there is a desire in many of the students who leave us in year 2 and year 3 to live in apartments around the community. They would like to stay, but we don't offer them the amenities that the apartment houses are offering them. We did an extensive look into what is it that students want, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to have listening sessions. We're going to engage students, faculty, and staff in those discussions so that we're not overbuilding, but we're likewise not underbuilding. We want to look at what will be that kind of community that we think is sustainable for the next decade, decade and a half, 2 decades. And we think we have a pretty good, what we call it, finger on the pulse for where we're going to be during that time. But it's a great question, and certainly one that we're not going to ignore as we move forward.
And as we've been having this conversation, you've had a chance to see some renderings of the facilities that President Smith is sharing with you and talking about as part of this conversation today. This question is as there's been a lot of conversation, and you've addressed it, I'll give you a chance to address it publicly as well, is privatization of the housing facilities. And as I was reading information again, prepping for this conversation, talk about the perception or the reality when it comes to privatization on the on-campus housing.
This is a partnership that we're entering into, so it is not a privatization. We'll continue to hire RAs. We'll continue to employ all the residence hall staff that we currently have that work with Jeanette Zelba and her team. And just as a sidebar here, Mark, what a group they are. They have just done tremendous work in the midst of the worst pandemic that you and I will ever experience. Just for the viewing audience, you and I weren't around when the Spanish flu was here in 1919.
Some people might question that.
They might question that, but it is true. We were not here. That we've really done remarkable work. We want to keep being the employer of those individuals. We'll evaluate the RAs like we always have. We'll set rates like we always have. We just have a construction partner that's going to help us build all of this. And in order to do it, we have a pretty sophisticated financing model that is not at all privatizing the units. It really is trying to get partnerships together to build them in the most proactive way and the most efficient way, given the amount of time we have to make this happen from 2022 to 2025, 2026, when we'll have the vast majority of this done.
And we have about a minute remaining. So let's talk about that timeline briefly. You said from 2022 this year to 2025. So will the shovels be in the ground this year? And at what point will we start to see people can actually move into the new housing?
Well, we know that 2022 means that we'll start this summer. Beyond that, in the construction world, and again, I know you do this in your communication business, we're going to say that we're going to be as proactive as we can be. But if you look at construction delays, all you have to do is try to go buy a car now, Mark, and that semiconductors and other things are really hard to find. But we're going to be very headstrong in moving forward as quickly as we can with a start for this summer in 2022 and then moving forward.
As the side, we're smiling, but you're absolutely spot on. I'm in the process now of looking at a new vehicle, and I'm running into that challenge right now. Because of supply chain shortage and all the other things we've been hearing so much about. As we wrap up, any final comments in the last 15 seconds for you as it relates to this on-campus housing?
I've talked about Strong, and I've talked about Sill, and I've talked about Mark Jefferson, but I'd be remiss not to say, I hope people have seen the new Rec IM. We're going to have a new dining facility. It's a shake, but shake on the healthy side. That'll be opening there soon. So all of these are a progression to have really a 21st century and preparing late into the 21st century for what campus needs to look like. And if people in the viewing audience haven't seen campus, I really encourage them to make that drive around. It's even beautiful in the winter. In the dead of winter, this campus is very pretty. It's gorgeous in the summer, and my favorite times in the fall. So I just want to include that little invitation, Mark, for people to come and see what we're doing on campus and understand that this is all about students. This isn't about Jim Smith or Mark S. Lee. This is really about what we can do for our students moving forward.
President James Smith, thank you again for joining me on EMU Today TV. Always a pleasure. And go out and make it a great day and have a great week. And for those of you tuning in, we're going to show you a brief video. Just had the winter commencement, first time in person in a little bit. So sit back and enjoy this video for the recent winter commencement. We'll be right back.
One word to describe my time here at EMU would be fun.
Commitment.
Fantastic. One word to describe my time at Eastern Michigan University is impactful.
The classes and life lessons I learned during my time at Eastern are the foundation of the incredible life I was able to build with their support. So when you leave EMU's campus, don't forget to look back. I assure you, what you have learned here and being an EMU alumni will open doors and provide so many opportunities. It is my hope that today's marks the beginning of your incredible story. And dream big, really, really big. Nothing's impossible.
You will always and forever be a member of the Eastern Michigan family. Thank you, congratulations, and know that today is your day.
All right, welcome back to EMU Today TV. Thank you for joining us this month again. My name is Mark S. Lee, and I hope you enjoyed that video. Yes, that was the very first in-person commencement from this past winter. Congratulations to all of the EMU graduates, including all of my students over in the College of Business. We're very proud of you. You got to make us all proud. Congratulations. I'm so pleased to have joining me Ms. Dara Munson, and she's the board chair for the EMU Foundation. Dara, thanks for joining me. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me, Mark.
My pleasure. It's good to have you. And let's jump right into the conversation. First of all, you are an alum of EMU. Tell us about your background in terms of being your activities at Eastern Michigan University and your affiliation with the university as well.
Yes, absolutely. I am an alum, a proud alum of EMU, graduated with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice in '96, just a few short years ago. And, you know, my experience at Eastern was, I think I probably took it for granted then as a student, but now that I have been able to build what I think is a successful and very intentional career based on the things that I learned as a student at Eastern, the relationships that I've built, and just the nurturing of my talents by my professors and faculty. I'm very, very thankful for the education that I received and for what we're now able to also continue to do for students, particularly those from Detroit, and particularly students who may not have the opportunity for the type of experience and education that you get from EMU, but for the support that the foundation provides.
My understanding as well, you work in the nonprofit sector as well on a full-time basis, correct?
I am president and CEO of an organization called Family Focus in Chicago. We focus on supporting the whole family through early childhood education, youth development, and family support. And it really is because of the degree that I received in criminal justice and my understanding of working in the justice system, the juvenile justice system, as a funder of nonprofit organizations. So all of that led to my ability to do this work that I'm able to do here in Chicago, not far from home in Detroit, but I do love the Windy City.
Absolutely. And well, I want to make sure we get that in as well. Let's jump right into the conversation about the foundation. You are the board chair. What attracted you to the EMU Foundation? Talk about your role as the board chair and what is the overarching mission of EMU's foundation?
That's a great question, Mark. I have been involved in the university since I graduated as a donor. Even when I was fresh out of college and wanted to support the university, I gave what I could to the foundation because philanthropy is critically important to me. And I knew that in order for me to fully live out a supportive role for the foundation, for the university, to support it financially was important. So I was able to do that. And I remained in touch with the university through my years. I neglected to say earlier that I became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated at Eastern, and I'm still a proud member of the sorority. And so all of that led to my ability to continue to be involved. And I've been a board member of the foundation for about 10 years now. And when it was time for me to retire or resign from the board because my terms were up, there was an opportunity to lean into even more leadership as board chair. And it is the most fulfilling experience that I could ever imagine. The first African-American woman board chair of the foundation, working alongside very stellar trustees who have given financially, shared their experience and expertise, and continue to do what we can through the foundation's philanthropic support for students. So I'm very honored to be the first Black woman chair of the foundation. And my goal is to continue not only the good work that we have done, but also to have a deliberate and intentional focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and seeing that those values are throughout all the strategies of the foundation.
And let me say as well, you're a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and I have had the distinct honor of crossing into the fraternity at Eastern and Michigan University a few years ago. We'll leave it at that. So just a few. But let's talk about the priorities for the foundation. Here we are in a brand new year. Here we are in January. Talk about, from your perspective as the board chair, we know there are challenges out there. We'll come back to that in a moment. But what are your top 3 priorities that you'd like to see accomplished this year?
Thank you, Mark. So yes, we have several priorities, and as you know, they're ever changing, especially in our current environment. But I will say, given when the foundation was created in 1989, the sole purpose has been to provide the financial support to students through programs, services, scholarship, and ensure that the educational community of EMU is stellar. And so that has not changed, right? The Board of Regents that established the foundation in '89 had a really specific vision, and we want to continue that vision, right? The priorities around student support, academics, of course, athletics, and meeting the community's needs. So those 4 things to me are just the pillars and the priorities of the foundation that will sustain. And we do that by growing the support for the endowment. We are rounding out a very successful campaign, the Give Rise campaign, that will end in June of 2023. And we think it'll be very successful. But the only way we can deliver on those initial priorities of student support, academics, athletics, and continuing to meet the community's needs is to grow the endowment. I will say for the foundation, as I talk about, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are critically important, and again, throughout the work of our current strategic plan. But we're also looking at donor engagement, creating intentional relationships throughout the campus to ensure that everybody understands the different ways to support the foundation, the different ways to create relationships through corporate partnerships, other foundations, other entities that give to support scholarships and programs, and ways that we can ensure that our students are able to create and experience this world-class education that we know that EMU delivers. And then also to create an environment that inspires creativity, so that as we continue to focus on the pillars of the foundation that were started several years ago, we know that we have to be nimble, we have to be flexible. Meeting community needs means that we are able to be agile and adjust based on the community's needs.
As we talk about those priorities and what you're trying to achieve, you being the board, the entire board, not just you personally, of course, but under your leadership, we know that we are in challenging times, and we know that there are challenges when it comes to resources and nonprofits and things of that sort. You work for a nonprofit in Chicago. Talk about the challenges ahead of you, ahead of the board this year, and how are you going to navigate those challenges in these challenging times here in 2022?
Yes, so we have continued to think about how the board shows up in support of the entire student population, in support of the surrounding community. So we've been able to create a really, really wonderful support for students through Swoop's Food Pantry. The pandemic has shown us sometimes the best and sometimes the worst of humanity, but what we know to be true is that individuals need intentional relationships and deliberate connections with with their fellow cohorts, so other students, faculty, staff of EMU. So we've tried to ensure that there is flexibility in ways that students can access funding through the foundation and continue their educational pursuits. And we'll continue to do that. We stay in touch with President Smith and with the Board of Regents in a very deliberate way, because we want to make sure that we are in partnership with the overall university's strategic priorities and pillars. So we stay in touch with the Board of Regents in that way. And we know that there will continue to be complex challenges facing EMU, the surrounding Ypsi community, Ypsi Arbor community, and the state, the city, the state, the country, just all of humanity. We know that those challenges will continue, even coming out of the pandemic, out of recovery, whatever the recovery looks like. And so the foundation is committed to staying true to our pillars that were established several years ago, but also being flexible so that we're able to provide the support for students to learn. Students are there to learn and not have to, and we're trying to create ways for them to alleviate the barriers to that learning, despite the challenges that the pandemic has created. So our goal will be to ensure even greater philanthropic impact from our donors, from the giving community, in partnership with the university, but always, always with the students' needs first.
I have about a minute and a half remaining or so, and I want to get your perspective. You know, we are in the backyard of Detroit. We are also not too far from another major urban area of Chicago and the Clevelands of the world as well. Talk about the level of support given to students coming from the urban areas as well through the foundation, types of programs you may have available, or donations. How are those helping those individuals come from the big cities?
Sure. Well, we know that more than 76% of EMU students receive some type of financial aid, and that we provide over 49 million in aid annually. I suspect that those needs will increase. I suspect that coming out of the pandemic, as families are trying to figure out how to ensure that their households are stable, ensure that if they have students at EMU or other universities, that they're able to continue on their educational path. And we want to ensure that as well. So our goal is to meet donors where they dream on behalf of our students and ensure that they're able to express their philanthropic support through the foundation, hopefully to round out the Give Rise campaign, but in a way that, again, allows us to provide for, sometimes it's the very basic of needs for students, and sometimes it's a scholarship. Sometimes it is just a few $100s to get from one semester to the next. And we do not want students to fall through those small and minor cracks. And as we see our donors really stepping up, we see the opportunities to create even more situations where students can be successful.
15 seconds or less. Give that final appeal to those who may want to make a donation.
Absolutely. EMU is well positioned and has such experience creating wonderful educational opportunities, high quality educational and experiential opportunities for students. And we want our donors and potential donors to really figure out how to be a part of this winning team and continue to support EMU. We are very close to reaching our goal, our $100 million campaign goal. We're at about 80 million. I feel very confident that we will get there, but we can't do it without the generous philanthropic support of individuals, foundations, corporations, and those that believe in the power of a high quality college education. So we ask that individuals and folks continue to support and help us to remain successful with this campaign.
Munson, thank you very much for your time today. And for those of you tuning in, we appreciate you tuning in each and every single month. And we will check you out next month on EMU Today TV.